I was afflicted with a curiosity recently. How many bullets does it take to get through a sheet of bulletproof glass? I mean, we know what they're rated to, but we don't necessarily know when they fail. And not just against rated threats, but sub-rated threats as well. Because it's not like a sheet of steel that can effectively take a sub-rated threat forever. I mean, they work by delamination. You'll tunnel through eventually. Well, I tried to ignore this because I didn't want to spend the time or the money associated with that. But it kept bugging me, so I went, bought some glass, picked up some of my favorite firearms, an old war trophy, courtesy of my great-grandfather, and got to it. Now, some caveats before we begin. I'm an engineer, but I'm not at work. This is my free time, which is pretty limited. And I'm resource constrained as well. You're not going to get the kind of rigor, nor the kind of seriousness that you're going to get out of a professional. So expect some buffoonery. I fully expected a few things wrong, and I'm okay with that. Also, just a consideration, my range is very safety conscious and has a lot of rules. So I had to go and get some range safety officers to personally supervise me while I did this. There's going to be a little chit-chat in the background, and they're going to involve themselves with the experiment. It's not really something that detracts from anything, just a good thing to know. In any case, let's get into it. We'll start off with the Level 1 Underwriters Laboratory Certified Ballistic Glass. This comes in at 3/4 of an inch in thickness and is rated for 3 rounds of 9mm. We'll start off with the rated threat to get a baseline. From there, we'll go to a non-rated threat, which is a 230 grain full metal jacket 45 ACP, and then to somewhat of a specialty ammo, which is 120 grain plus P Extreme Defender, which has a more unique tip geometry, which perhaps will cause more force to be generated in a smaller area and may lead to greater penetration. We'll find out. Next, we're going to go with the Level 3 Underwriters Laboratory Certified Glass, which comes in at 1¼ inches of overall thickness and is rated to 3 rounds of 44 Magnum. I do not intend to use a rated threat against this because I don't have a 44 Magnum pistol, and even if I did, I only have so much money to spend on glass, and this is just an intermediary curiosity between the Level 1 and the Level 8. So we're going to start off again with a pistol round, the 45 ACP from last time, and then a subsonic 300 blackout. Now, the 300 blackout is only 220 grains versus the 45 ACP's 230 grains. However, I've got a theory that it'll actually be better at penetration as a result of having a pointier profile, so you'll get more force in a smaller area. And we'll finish up with the big fella, the Level 8 Underwriters Laboratory Certified Glass, coming in at a noticeably thicker 2 1/8 inch and rated for 5 rounds of 308. We'll start with the rated threat, 147 grain PMC bronze, and then move on to sub-rated threats, starting with a 147 grain 300 blackout. Similar bullet, but substantially lower velocity, so this could also be a surrogate for long-range shots, I suppose. From there, we'll move on to the 220 grain subsonic 300 blackout, and then conclude with our 45 ACP. I think it'll be very interesting to see just how much fat, dumb, and slow it takes to get through a rifle-rated plate. So that doesn't actually end up happening. Because of a mistake that I end up making with the 308, or alternatively, an interesting new test point, we actually have to take a second swing at the bat with the 308, which eliminates the 300 blackout subsonic from the level 8 plate test. Additionally, because of the relatively poor performance of the 45 ACP full metal jacket in the previous 2 plate tests, and the surprisingly good performance of the 45 ACP Extreme Defender in the level 1, decide to actually switch out the FMGA for the Extreme Defender for the level 8 plate test. My post-penetration energy measurement medium will be 5 gallon jugs of water. It has been demonstrated by the esteemed Who that a 45 ACP 230 grain jacket hollow point round fired at point blank range will penetrate through 3 gallons of water and then pierce but not penetrate the 4th. Now, Who did indeed miscount between 3 and 4 during his video, but I won't hold that against him too much because he is indeed one of the giants on whose shoulders I am standing. Now we'll just be able to use that as a decent baseline. If it gets through 3, then it has a similar amount of penetration as that 45 ACP at point blank. If it gets through 4 or 5, well, that's interesting as well. And if it gets through less than that, then we can use that as data. It also helps us differentiate between penetrations that are actually relevant, as in would actually produce effects on the backside of the glass, and those that would bounce off a gallon jug of water.
Whoa. Ceasefire. Yeah.
The initial target was set up at 10 yards, and that was the plan for the entire experiment. However, the first round ended up bouncing off of the glass and coming back in our direction, which, as you heard, made the range safety officers more than a little bit nervous. As a result, we backed off to 15 yards so that any further rounds that might bounce off would fall well short of us and indeed fall before that 5-yard safety baffle. This was considered to be safe enough and was a compromise I was willing to accept. It's just as well because I'd actually forgotten to set up the uprange camera, and without the work of resetting, I wouldn't have noticed and we would have missed the entire string of fire of the 9mm from the actual position of the gun.
5. I get penetration?
I don't know. Looks like I thought you did even one shot ago, but
Did
wanna
you
go down
see,
and look?
is there any water that splashed off the back?
I didn't see the water. I didn't see water.
All right. Wow. All right. To load up a new mag. Try again. Any water?
No, you were real low on that shot. Low
Okay.
left. Yeah, I think I saw one.
see
Yep, there's
water.
water.
Look
There's
at
water.
that.
Yep. Yeah, 1 or 2. It almost looked like
One,
the second one.
2,
The second one was leaking. It looked like.
3, and the bullets there in the bottom.
All right. We captured it in 3.
It's hard to say exactly what happened with these panes, even reviewing the film as much as I have. That being said, you can see here where I shot low. It's my bad, I'm not entirely sure why I did that. But as you get through, you can't actually see the through and through anywhere. You really have to look at the back side to confirm. And so we had these two come through. And were they actual penetrations? It's hard to tell. I've got one shot that looks like maybe it bounced off of the milk jugs themselves. This one I'm not actually convinced something came all the way through. This was our proper penetration. This is the one that hit the jugs.
I think I see the bullet. Yep, I do see the bullet. That one came back at us.
My round started to bias lower despite me holding the same general aim point towards the center of the target, to the point where I ended up dropping 2 into the wood, which is an issue. So I ended up pulling my aim up right over the top of the target stand to account for that. Then my point of impact came back to where it was previously, and so I sailed one shot over the top, safely within the berm, but not actually useful for my test. From that point, I just went back to shooting in the center and finished it out.
There we go. So that is 45 rounds.
This begins an unfortunate trend of the water jugs being just slightly too low, so the bullets will pass through a few of them and then exit out the top or the sides. So you don't actually get a full view of how much power is left in the round, since it's neither captured in a jug, nor does it penetrate through all 5 of them. That being said, I'll annotate how many it gets through before exiting. This one we beat the absolute hell out of. You can see we completely peppered it with shots. In fact, you can see that little chip where my very lowest shot hit. And so this is a fairly spread out grouping overall, both vertically and horizontally. However, you can see multiple groups of anywhere between 3 and 7 shots that were directly on top of each other. So there's plenty of opportunity for penetration in the event there's enough energy available. We had a couple close calls. There's some non-trivial deformation on the back in a few places. In this case, this was the one that I think actually hit the water bottles. This one I'm not so sure about, and this one I think is the one that looks like there was a sort of low-speed deflection where a chunk flew out of the back to the left of the bottles.
Whoa! I was gonna call 2, but holy cow! 2.
Fantastic. All right, so let's go ahead and go cold.
Okay, go. I'd love to see what that thing looked like.
2 left.
Okay.
So this was the biggest surprise of the day. As you can see, penetrating 2. These are fairly close together, just under 2 fingers. However, the first shot almost came through. That is a pretty sizable deformation there. The second shot came through pretty clean. If I'd spread them apart, it may have lasted a little bit longer, but we had 9mm and 45 ACP laying closer than that failed to penetrate, so this is absolutely significant.
About being in generally the same region.
Coming right back to the same spot. There it is.
Alrighty, let's see. 45 plus 11. So it really wasn't that much more to get through.
This is all unopened spring water. I can take a drink. Yeah.
So yeah, you can see the captured rounds in there. I'll dig them out later. So in the moment, I said that I would dig out the bullets that were trapped inside of this later. But honestly, I kind of find them cool, so I think I'm just going to keep them there. That being said, once again, peppered the hell out of this. Did take a couple low shots again. I really am starting to think there may have been some consistency issues with that ammo. Backside honestly stays smooth basically the whole way through until it delaminates right here for our penetration, which is this little fella right here at my fingertip. There's not as many ambiguities as with the last one. This is the only one that really looks like it came through.
rated for 44.
Well,
We can see the first one, yeah. Ah!
Four.
Four.
All right, gents.
Look at that.
Caught her. Now this one's pretty cool because it captures the bullet and lets it stick out of the front there. However, it is also perhaps slightly unfair because 3 rounds got stacked within a pretty small amount of space. So, the first round left no mark, the second round left a bullet, and the third round penetrated. All within, I give it about an inch or so. Now, is that fair? Maybe not. Maybe if I'd spread it out more, the plate would have lasted longer.
Oh yeah, I'm at 25, so I need to adjust for that.
That's two.
Okay. Yeah.
You went right through the same hole?
Yeah. All right.
And here, we do it in 2. Rounds appear to have impacted within about a ½ inch of each other. Comes through pretty clean.
And we'll do another shot with the 308 and not put... I didn't realize I was aiming that close together. So we're not going to put 2 rounds through the same hole again. That is my mistake.
Center. It's gonna make the rating. Yes, sir.
All right, do it the way they do it.
That's the rating.
So now I'm going to start hitting in between. I'm not going to stack bullets again, but do something like this.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, jeez.
Ooh.
You blew the top.
Yeah,
right
took
off
the top right off of her. This one got the more official test configuration. 5 shots, just like in the standard. However, on the 6th shot, when I decided to split the goalpost, we got penetration with very little deformation actually on the front side. I may have been a little bit low. Perhaps I should have moved it a little further up here. However, 6 shots is 6 shots. And it was a clean pass-through. Up until that pass-through, though, no real back-face deformation. It's a pretty smooth plate.
Oh, that was low.
that was wood.
Whoops. All right, well, it's still down. Might actually need to add a little elevation available off this. Magazine gets in the way.
Mm-hmm. That was a hard hit there. Because that's all it took.
10.
Okay. 7 more. 6. 5.
Oh, that's water.
Oh yeah.
Water.
Dang. 13. I think it was 13.
That's 12.
12.
What did I say? 10.
No, you said 25.
No, I didn't. I said
All
10.
right, clear.
Thanks, sir. Will come out, in theory.
Yeah, I'll take the...
As we get up towards the bottom here,
It won't come out.
it won't? You don't think?
Nope.
Well, then this might be a waste of my time, but let's do it anyway. There we go. Oh my. Yeah, that's there's not a lot of bullet left over, to be honest.
Need some in there.
Yeah, it's super cool. And here's the one I, as a clown, forgot to record at the target stand itself. That being said, you can see 3 distinct areas that were primarily hit. We did have multiple almost penetrations. You can actually see, if you look real closely, the bullet still stuck trying to get out of the glass there. Of these 3 that remain, I'm honestly not sure which one is the actual penetration. I think it's between these 2 as the most likely candidates. Because it's completely delaminated, we can kind of pull this off and check it from the back side. And of course, the big hole that we drilled through the multiple layers seems to suggest it was maybe this one.
Empty.
Dang it. Oh, I was wrong.
There's water.
Woo! Lots of water. I think we finally, I think we went through the tops again.
Oh yeah, but
Ripped it open.
yeah, I'm not even sure it had anything to do with the height. I think it just
It's the deflection.
it went sideways when it went into the water. Alright. So it finally came through here. Exploded this. Skipped through the top of this, but does not appear to have captured the round.
Broken the handle.
Yeah, swooped right through the handle. Took 4 more rounds after all that abuse. And the real wild card of the shoot, the 45 Extreme Defender, ended up using this on the rifle glass instead of the full metal jacket as expected. Unfortunately, we did run out after 38 rounds because we simply weren't expecting to shoot that much, so I didn't bring that much, and had to finish off with 4 rounds of subsonic 300 blackout. That being said, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 almost penetrations. In fact, one did get all the way through the poly on the backside, but obviously nothing came through in those first 38 rounds. And then the 300 blackout came and dealt the killing blow at the end. That being said, based on how they both performed relative to the Full Metal Jacket 45 ACP, I think the Extreme Defender would outperform the Subsonic 300 Blackout. So I'd be willing to bet that you'd get through in less than 4 additional rounds if we'd had the rounds available. So between 38 and 42. I leave it up to the viewer to decide. So from all of that, we learned some things that we already knew. 1, velocity defeats armor. 2, smaller frontal area helps improve your penetration. And 3, that concentrating impacts help defeat armor quicker. Now some lessons we actually learned are that pistol bullets bounce off of ballistic glass harder than expected, whereas rifle bullets are more likely to sort of disintegrate inside of them. 2 is that German pistols actually work just fine even after not being used for generations. 3, holes that get blown through the back of the ballistic panel don't necessarily mean that something's passed through. So even if the panel fails, the person behind it could still be safe for at least a couple more rounds. 4, we learned that Blazer 45 ACP can be a little moody and may not exactly have the most consistent velocity curve. 5, Underwood Extreme Defender is about 22 times better at penetrating hard targets than Full Metal Jacket, and that is very surprising. And then 6, just because I say that I'm going to adjust my 0 doesn't mean that I will actually do it. But on the plus side, we got to see what happens when you slap 2 308s within more or less the same hole. And the answer is that it'll defeat glass rated for 5 shots and only 2. Somewhat curious what it would do to ceramic plates now. Well, that and many other questions that I have are going to have to remain unanswered because I am not going to spend this money again. So I hope you like what you got.